Welcome back to another episode of the Live Your Yes Life podcast. Each week, we bring you channeled thoughts, discussions, and interviews to help you go from dreaming and wishing to actively living your yes life. So, you guys, I have a really special guest on the podcast today. Her name is Tailor Gable. She is a post-traumatic growth coach. She also happens to be a member of the Circle, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her. We're having a conversation today about what it actually means to live your life from this authentic place. I asked her to come on the show today and talk about it because Tailor is someone to me who does an incredible job of really showing up and seeking to live her life from this very aligned, very authentic place. She talks really candidly about her traumatic experiences and her journey post-traumatic experience to what led her to be doing what she is today and how that actually led her to living from this place of authenticity. So much wisdom in this episode, so many things that are going to inspire you guys to, really live your most true version of yourself as well. She drops some really great exercises, some tips, and things that you can do. And I think you're just going to fall in love with Tailor and you're really going to love this episode. So without further ado, keep listening. And as always, I would love it if you could send me a DM. Let me know your takeaway from this episode. Share it if you have a friend who needs to hear this. And of course, subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tailor, thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot wait to jump into this conversation. I'm excited. I feel like I've gotten to know you, through the Circle this year, but I want to know more. And this just feels like an opportunity. Like, I'm excited for myself to get to have this deeper conversation with you, to learn more about you, and to talk about what it means to really, truly live a life from this place of authentic alignment. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. I actually had my first in-person exposure to you and Kaela, maybe like last October before I joined the Circle. And when I was in your presence with Kaela, I was like, oh, I want to be a part of this, but I'm not ready yet. I knew I had some more of my own growth. And so I'm really happy that this has evolved up until this point. And now that I'm ready and in this community, and I'm so ready to share my story.
Oh, me too. Me too. I'm so excited. So let's just kind of start at the beginning. Like, I am wondering if you would be willing to share your personal journey a little bit. So, as I said in the intro, you guys, Tailor is a post-traumatic growth coach. And Tailor, I would love it if you would share a bit about your journey and then how you discovered the concept of post-traumatic growth coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'll just dive right in. When I was born, I would say from the time I was born up until 7 years old, our really innocent, youthful sponge-like phase, I had experienced 15 different traumatic experiences. And what that did for me was I had developed this hypervigilance. I had developed this independence, this frustration, this guardedness that really, in its essence, looking back on it now, I had developed a fight and flight personality. And at the time, I wasn't provided the resources that really could have been most useful to helping me navigate those experiences as a child. And so, not having been able to heal those pieces of myself when I needed it most allowed for me to become a magnet for more like traumatic experiences to come in. And what that did for me was it brought in a lot of relationship trauma that has created a sense of trappedness almost, and being able to like, oh, I want, just knowing that there's a desire to want something different for myself. You see it, you feel it, you visualize it. But there was a spot in my early adulthood where I was just, I know I want to get somewhere, but I'm not quite sure how. And so it's like, that dark night of the soul where you really start to really evaluate. I'm like, no, my intuitive pull really tells me there's something different available for me. And I had never really fit into one specific group of people. I was really an outcast and really interested in always talking about my feelings, always interested in other people's feelings, how they're navigating life. And some people are receptive to that and some people don't. Some people just prefer to talk about the weather. And so through that journey, I really I went through a stage of really isolating myself in a healthy way, but I isolated myself. I'm like, you know what? I really don't feel like the rest of society right now. So I isolated myself and I hired mentors and coaches and I started reading books and I started giving myself quiet time and I really started following the pull, my intuitive ping as to what is best for me. And I had realized through my studies, through coaching, through just natural life experiences, through reading, through practice, through breathing, that what I was moving through was a post traumatic growth journey. Like, wow, my entire life of traumatic experiences, I am now entering this phase of my post traumatic growth journey. And I would say that that really started probably 5 years ago is when I really started taking it seriously to that next level of this is possible for me. And once I started doing that, I had realized, like, oh my gosh, my entire life, my personality, my default personality was actually an emotional response of fight and flight. And I'm like, well, who am I? Who am I really? And once I started discovering pieces of myself, it's like a ripple effect. Once you start applying tools to certain areas of your life, it really opens up portals to become your authentic self in any part of your life that you allow it. And because of some of the experiences I've gone through, and I'm happy to share those if it organically comes up in this conversation, I knew that there's other people in the world that have gone through this too, and that are probably still living in this emotional response, maybe not even knowing it. So just feeling like there's something different available for me, but I'm not quite sure how to get there. And that is what really led me to wanting to help others, show them that this is possible. Yes, you're not alone in your childhood trauma. You're not alone in not knowing what to do with it and where to go next. But it is possible to move beyond this and break free from the shackles that keep you attached to this and become your most authentic self.
I feel like you're saying something that is going to be a big aha for a lot of people listening. This is a really important conversation. I want to thank you so much for bringing this forward. So, something I heard you say that I think a lot of people are going to resonate with, and maybe they're going to hear it today for the first time, but what you said was you realized that because of the trauma that you had experienced in the past, and the habitual sort of, we have coping mechanisms and all the things that come out of these situations, especially trauma as a child, you realize that, the way you were living much of your life was an emotional response to these like fight or flight responses. And that wasn't your authentic self. So I wanted to just double tap on this for anyone out there who's listening, who's like, gosh, I just feel like I don't know who I really am, or I just don't feel like I know who I am. I don't feel like I can be myself, or just you kind of feel stuck in maybe a people pleasing or whatever that might be. Definitely keep listening in to this conversation because I know, Taylor, you have so much to share about this. Can you give me an idea in your life of like what were those emotional responses? Like what was life like when you were living from that place?
Mm-hmm. And I love this topic because I'm still not free from it, right? So that it still shows up in certain areas, but what I've been able to do is really reduce the refractory period of my emotional response, which is really the key. And I think I can even give a more recent example. So outside of my coaching, I also do environmental work. And so, just in a work meeting, for example, I was having a conversation with a colleague. He had expressed to me a certain task that he wanted to have done, and chose a certain tone to do it. And not that it meant anything at all, but because of my past experiences having conversations with certain masculine energies, I immediately took it as personal. I was taking it personal. I almost felt like it was an attack on my work ethic and the work that I had been doing up until that point when, and the point of that is that I had taken a response, made an assumption based on past experiences, and allowed that to spiral. And then I became in a dysregulated state. And the point of that was as I entered a survival mode. And it's not necessary for me in this workspace to be in a survival mode. My life wasn't threatened. I wasn't there. I wasn't in any danger. But because I haven't fully uncovered some of my childhood experiences that came through an everyday, just in a natural conversation with a colleague. So I find myself even now in daily conversations, I still sometimes get pulled into this place and I still have to bring this manual awareness to the situation and really in real time tell myself, sometimes I always carry a journal with me. That really helps me move through things too, when I can say, oh, this is what I'm experiencing right now, and here's how I'm moving through this is how I'm interpreting this, and yes, that could be one possibility, but what else could this mean? And so it starts out as a manual process, but the more you bring awareness and willingness to those situations, it's really powerful to move through that.
And awareness really is key, right? I say that to my clients all the time. It's like once you become aware, now you're back in the driver's seat to choose to shift it if you want to do that. When we're not aware, it's like we're just operating from autopilot. And that's the difference. And I love the tool of carrying the journal with you and, kind of working yourself through this process. Would you share with us, like, how do you define for yourself living in authentic alignment? And why is it so crucial, like, in terms of growth?
How do I define authentic alignment for myself? Oh, for me, it always comes back to a feeling. So I try to visualize what that looks like for myself, but there's hundreds of different situations in which I feel aligned. So for me, it really comes back to the feeling. And I make this distinction because you can do an internal or an external distinction. I do both of them. And so for me, the internal distinction is it's a body feeling. So when something is in full alignment for me, when it's a hell yes for me, I feel it in my chest, in my heart. I just feel so open. I feel a buzzing. And sometimes, like when it's at its highest, I get really energized and I start, like, I call myself the Energizer Bunny. And I'm like, oh, I have to do something with this energy. Like, I just need to move. And that's when my creativity flows the strongest. That's when my connections are the strongest. And when something is out of alignment, when it's a hell no, I feel it in my stomach, like really, beneath my heart, right above, right below my belly button. So I feel it in that center, and it's just like this. It's a heaviness. It feels like really strong butterflies, and so I've really been able to make that internal distinction for myself by tuning into my body, and externally, I think what it looks like for me is when something is in alignment, I feel more extroverted, actually. I feel ready to connect. I feel alive and happy. And I like to move a lot. And, opposing to that, when it's not in alignment, I really do tend to become more introverted and maybe dissociate myself from the external world to create that sense of alignment. Not that it's right or wrong, but just, noticing that something feels different and requires attunement.
Yeah, this is really good. So, this idea of living in alignment, and I feel like the word authentic is used a lot in today's society. But when we just think about this term of living your yes life, which is what we are, the Yes Life podcast, we can't fully live a yes life unless we are truly being ourselves. And I love the way you're describing this of just like it's a knowing in your body. Now, for some of you, you might experience this a little bit differently, but for some of you, this is going to be so spot on of like, I know because I'm more extroverted. I like what I'm hearing is like a sense of openness. I've got more energy. And when something is a no, it's like I'm withdrawing, or if it's out of alignment, I tend to see myself pulling back. I can resonate with the way that this shows up for you as well. Sometimes there's a lot of reasons why we can resist speaking our truth, right? We'll just talk about speaking our truth or expressing our personal truth, which is a big part of living in alignment. It's being able to really say what we think. And for someone who has been through traumatic experiences, so I have too, I've walked through several different traumatic experiences in my life. And, sometimes for me, you can tell me if you resonate with this, when I speaking my truth, especially early as I started to do some healing work, was brought up a lot of fear, right? It didn't feel safe. And so for some people listening, when we think about living in alignment or speaking your truth, expressing your truth from an aligned place, there can really be a feeling of, am I safe to do this? So I'm curious if this comes up quite a bit in the work that you do with your clients, and any advice you might have for someone who experiences a lot of resistance around expressing their truth.
Oh, yes. Oh gosh, this could go so many ways. I definitely resonate with everything you're saying with myself and with the clients I work with as well. I would say, I mean, there's there's a consistent fear of something, always a fear of something. And I think that when you're experiencing resistance, it's always that fear of X, Y, and Z, whatever that means for you. For me, it is definitely a fear of losing safety, a fear of rejection, a fear of not being heard, a fear of being too much, a fear of being a burden. And so the advice I like to give to clients and myself when I'm guiding myself and others through this resistance is obviously practicing speaking our truth. Of course, I encourage that. But when we're feeling resistance in doing this, it's so important to recognize that when we do speak our truth, it was similar actually to what I brought awareness to earlier this morning when I was practicing this exercise, is our truth to somebody else, to an external anything, always reveals a further truth to ourselves. And so when we practice living in our truth, another truth is responded back to us, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. It is a truth, and now we know what we can do from here. So it is always data, right? We're always collecting data. Like I said, whether sometimes it is unpleasant, but sometimes it is pleasant, and there's always a lesson, and it's always an opportunity for growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if someone is speaking their truth and whoever they're speaking it to reacts in a way that isn't safe, that's information I shouldn't. Well, obviously, within safety, everyone needs to make sure that they are safe above all else, right? When I say safety, I'm meaning, if you're in a relationship where I'm just a stand that relationships get to be loving, right? They're messy and we're human and all of the things, but there can be truths revealed about who you're in a relationship with. This could be, anyone you're related to or not related to. There's just more information being revealed, in which case you then can make a decision about what you're really choosing and what you're wanting to have come forward in your life. Or, I also feel like there's real opportunity for connection here. And we can be our full selves and we can speak what's true for us, especially in a relationship, since that's kind of what we're talking about here. It opens up the opportunity for real, true connection. Because if we're holding back in any kind of way, we're not giving that other person the opportunity to really see us, and connection can then only go so far. Would you say that you've seen that as true in your own life or the life of your clients?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's like that truth that's revealed to you if you're living an authentic self and the person you're speaking with is, if you're authentic and you're communicating with someone in resistance, there's going to be a resistance. If you're both in resistance, you're really going to hit a wall. But if you're both in authenticity, you can only grow together or apart. But hopefully you can do it from a space of directness and empathy and neutrality so that you both can move through that process without experiencing unpleasant feelings.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some practices that people can do if they want to really start to connect with their authentic self. They really want to step into bringing forward the truth of who they are, speaking their truth a bit more. I know that you have a lot of different practices, and a few of them, things like yoga, meditation, journaling. Maybe you have some others you would add to this. But how can things like this support someone on the journey of living more authentically or even just embracing their truth more?
Yes. So, one of the first practices or tools I always teach my clients when I'm working with them, because every time, this is only speaking from this stage specifically, is that dark night of the soul of like, oh, I know there's something different. I don't know what to do from here. And it can seem, that phase can, for some people, can seem, really paralyzing, and fearful to just not really know what to do. But it's like you're stepping into a whole new world, which is hard to grasp. So I really try to teach the 1% rule first. It's kind of like the analogy of like the New Year's resolution, where some people like to go all in on January 1st, and I'm going to work out 5 days a week from, they go from 0 to 100, and it doesn't quite work that way. What happens is we exhaust our nervous system, and we go back to what's comfortable. And so I always teach the 1% rule. So I like to teach starting to ask yourself really powerful questions, and the 1% rule. So, what can I do today that's 1% better than yesterday? That seems really doable. For some people, they're like, well, that was really easy. Instead of walking for 5 minutes, I walked for 10 minutes. Well, great. Maybe do it for 20. So it's like, so that's, you get to know yourself that way. What is my growth? Where am I comfortable growing? How fast am I, what is my pace? And so you really get to learn yourself through that essence. And yes, definitely journaling. For me, I've always journaled, but I've definitely worked with some clients that are like, unless I was in school, I've never really touched a journal. And so, it can be quite confusing to put a pen to paper and not really know what to do from there. So to that, I say, I always go to a support system. Anytime you're healing, I always, whether you have a close friend that is a healthy soundboard. That's a whole different conversation of who your support system is, of course, but always recommending to have at least one person when you're starting to take your journey, to have a soundboard or someone to just to listen to you, someone to ask you, like I said, really powerful questions, just your reflective questions. Even just asking yourself what could be different when you start incorporating a bird's eye view into your daily living. That's really huge too. How can I look at this differently for myself? I'm experiencing something unpleasant. What would make this pleasant? What is this trying to teach me? So I always do reflective questions and journaling. That some people, obviously everyone has different levels of spirituality and how that resonates to them. For everyone, I think, we all have this tool that we don't need we don't need a pen or paper. There's are certain things that we can do with just our own bodies. And so I always encourage breathing. So for some people, it's so interesting that, our body does our breathing for us, but a lot of people have never paused to intentionally say, oh, I'm breathing. And so that in itself can just be so powerful to start doing that. Even that practice on a continual basis unfolds just portals of visions and dreams. So that's really the foundational pieces of what I do. There's a layer of additional work that I do with my clients on understanding their foundational pieces, like their core motivations, their love languages, their sex languages. Just, there's a lot of foundational pieces that are beautiful to us that when we uncover that, it's like, oh, wow, this is who I am.
Ooh, I feel like we need to have you come back and dig into some of those topics. That sounds really good. Yeah, I'm so happy. I would love that too. I'm so happy that we're starting to, as a society, talk more about traumatic experiences, mental health issues, the stigma is much less than what it used to be. That it's more mainstream and that people are more apt to seek support, to seek help in these types of experiences, because it can feel very isolating. It can feel very alone. And on the flip side of it, I do think it's a catalyst for beautiful growth for a lot of people. And when you're ready, right? If and when you're ready. And so, I'd like to speak into this idea of having a supportive community. I mean, obviously, of course, reaching out to a therapist or trusted health professional whenever that feels right for you. Someone like Taylor, who is a coach in this realm, even just doing personal growth work, which is obviously the work that we're up to, and you're into it. If you're listening to this podcast, we already know that that's the kind of stuff that you're into. But I do want to talk a little bit about, having a supportive community, having a network that can really support you, even just to live more authentically, right? To become more of who you are. So will you tell me, like, for you, what role does like mentorship or coaching play in the process for you?
So for me personally, I love having an accountability platform. It's so crucial to have a place that you can go to vent, to reflect, to visualize, to move forward with. And I'm always, I either am seeing a therapist, I'm hiring a one-on-one coach, I'm part of a larger community. I always make sure that I'm a part of something. And when I started doing that for myself, what happened is I magnetized so many new friendships. And I no longer felt the way that I felt as a child, a teenager, and a young adult. That feeling of not that I wanted to fit in, but I knew that there were other people striving for something different in their life. And I couldn't find those people because I had surrounded myself with so many people that were living to general societal expectations, and that didn't sit right with me. And so when I started taking ownership of my happiness by hiring mentors and coaches and therapists, and I went back to school. That's another form of guidance as well. That was just so transformational. And honestly, what it did for me was it attracted my soul family, which is continuously expanding. And it's so beautiful to have that platform. And I will always stay committed to being a part of some type of coaching community.
I absolutely love that so much. So thank you for sharing all of that. This time just flew by so fast. We're already out of time. I was hoping you would share. So I shared in the beginning that you've been a part of the circle. And so for you guys who are listening, the circle is our 12-month long coaching community. It's a membership community, a coaching community in which there's one-on-one coaching, there is group coaching that happens every week. There are new things happening in 2024. But Taylor has been a part of this community. Such a gift and a blessing to have. I've really enjoyed. I wanted to bring her on to speak to you guys because I've so enjoyed just the way that she shows up and the way that she contributes to all the things going on as well. But Taylor, I would love to hear from you. Like, how has being in the circle particularly supported you in your time that you've been a part of the community?
Oh my gosh, I would love to talk about this. So I want to go back to that first day that I was exposed to both you and Kaela. I was at the Building Dreams Summit, and I was at one of the front tables, and I had seen you speak, and I had felt this energy, this confidence, this essence, and transparently, I was actually very triggered that day from that morning, but still kept myself committed to going to this event. I knew it was good for my soul. And I immediately knew, I'm like, wow, I was like, that energy sits so strongly with me. Like that became my goal. I was like, that's it. That's it. And so for the next 6 months, I held that energy with me and continue to evolve and transform. And then fast forward to June this year, I had seen the both of you again at the Rise Up Experiences conference. And I'm like, this is it. I'm signing up. And I was ready. At that point, I had showed up to that event in my authentic self, obviously continuously evolving. And I'm like, I'm ready for this energy. Like, I vibe with it. I got to dance with you guys. And it was so magnetic. It was just that was the yes for me. And I signed up immediately. And since then, I mean, it's been about 6 full months now. I have the container that is within the Rise Circle provides such collaboration, such expansiveness, acceptance. It is a community of the least amount. There's zero judgment. It is, for me, I have this, I have this innate fear of not being safe. And I've never felt so safe in this community and accepted, and loved and supported. And I am just so grateful for all that the circle provides. I look forward to my daily pocket coaching. That is extremely helpful in my busy mornings. I'm like, oh yes, here's my reminder to stop and pause and make time for myself. For what the circle provides, it is such a strong, supportive value to anyone that is serious about growing.
Thank you so much. It actually makes me emotional to hear that. Because I've talked to so many women in particular who hold themselves back from joining a group because it doesn't feel safe. It's like past traumas of not belonging or competition or, feeling like, well, I'm not as far along as this person, so I'm not going to fit in. And so to hear you say those words, it really fills my heart with so much, because that is what we want: a safe space, a safe community. Come as you are. And we're not all alike, right? But the commonality is we're all here for growth and support and connection. And you get to meet amazing women like Tailor who are doing the thing and making a difference and changing the world, which is so incredible. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here today to share a bit of your story with us. We'll definitely have you back on in 2024 to share more, because I know there's just so much more we could talk about. Any final words that you want to leave the listeners with today?
I thank you so much. I am so grateful to be here and have this conversation. It's so important. I wrote on my paper NSR and circled it because in this entire discussion, I did not talk about nervous system regulation, which is a huge part of growth and expansion. So I think what I just want to leave people with is, I know we can't fully dive into that, but just do some research on nervous system regulation, understand your body, and understand the importance of self-prioritization and confidence in putting yourself first.
It's truly everything. Mm-hmm. When our nervous system is regulated, everything else falls into place. It's just, why? Wisdom. Really, yes, such wisdom. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. And if you'd like more information about the circle, as always, send a message to Kaela and I. We'll chat with you. We'll let you know if we feel like it's right for you. I will have our team link it below as well if you want to read a little bit more. And Tailor, how can people reach you online? Where are you hanging out these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I have my Facebook is Tailor Gable, and I also have an Instagram account that is Trauma Guide. So please follow me. Please reach out if you have any questions on this. I love connecting with new souls.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.